The Palestinian resistance, it released multiple confirmations in the past 24 hours saying that we've done everything that we can to release all of the bodies that we have of the prisoners of war. But there would be remaining bodies of Israeli prisoners of war who Israel killed and buried in Gaza and created rubble on top of them anyway. We wouldn't be able to do that unless they withdraw more and we have more assistance and help from different countries. Now, the Turkish authorities, in particular the Turkish Defense Ministry, they said that they were authorized to go and send a team of 80 people to help with the rescue and search inside of Gaza. But Israel, on the other hand, is blocking these attempts. They're saying that Hamas need to return everyone before they go in. Well, you stupid fool, they're going to go in to help you get your bodies of the prisoners of war back. But Israel is saying, no, actually, Hamas, they have the capability to do that. Just the other day, they were saying that they're willing to help Hamas technologically and with some intelligence to get some of the bodies. How are they going to be able to reach anyone with tons of rubble from this barbaric genocide and get anyone back? Making it out as if, and some of the mainstream media and corporate media are telling you about Hamas breaching the ceasefire agreement because they're not allowing all of the bodies to go back to Israel. They can't have them anyway. How can they obtain them? Plus, the genocide soldiers are still in some parts because this was the initial withdrawal. It's not the full withdrawal. How are they going to get all of these bodies back? And Israel is making it out as if it's something to do with only the bodies of the Israeli prisoners of war who came out in a very healthy way and no one suffering from any issues whatsoever. As a matter of fact, one of them said that he was actually brought a religious book, a Torah, to kind of read when he was imprisoned. And the Palestinians are being released with torture, unbelievable levels of torture from these dungeons inside of Israel. Several of them had multiple statements and stories to make. One of them was actually talking about the level of torture that they were enduring in these dungeons of Israel and how much they were suffering from all of these problems, from all of the torture that Israel has been conducting inside of the Gaza Strip, and how much they humiliated them and beat them and in many cases raped them as well. So one of the articles that were published from the Palestinian side was in relation to the released bodies of the Palestinian prisoners or hostages, to be more accurate, in Israeli prisons. They were speaking about getting 120 bodies from Israel. So far, they were able to identify 6 only. Why? Because of the state that the bodies were in. And the information is beyond sadistic. Many of the bodies that were released, that Israel released, who had missing organs. So Israel stole organs, organ harvesting, very well-known thing for the Jewish state to do. Then blindfolded, and many of them were suffocated, chains around their necks, and blindfolded and handcuffed. Some of them were ran over by Israeli bulldozers. Some of them had limbs missing. Even some of the families who were horrified to see how they returned couldn't identify many of them. And the healthcare system in Gaza has limited capabilities anyway. Limited capabilities to deal with them, limited capabilities to have them remaining inside of Gaza, because of course the hospitals in Gaza, they are very restricted in terms of how long they can keep some of these bodies. When on the other hand, the Israeli the freed Israelis who were released from Gaza, they were actually seeing pretty normal conditions. Freed Israeli soldiers said Hamas provided me with Torah prayer items during captivity. And imagine him saying that with all of the propaganda campaign that's happening. The other day, there was a statement coming from, I think she was in the CNN, one of their reporters. She said that Hamas treated the prisoners of war better than Israel did. Only before they forced her to apologize one day after. Why did she have to apologize? For what? Saying facts? You see, the propaganda machine isn't stopping even after the supposed peace deal. This peace deal that is seeming nothing but peace intoxication. They want to intoxicate people. And also what they're planning to do after this is have this whitewashed version of Israel, despite the fact that one of the Palestinian hostages who was released from these Israeli dungeons said that they were raping them inside of their dungeons and even had dogs raping them. I mean, unbelievable stuff, to be honest with you. The statements that they're making, some of them, are beyond comprehension. Yet, of course, you're not going to hear any of that. Imagine one of the Israelis was released in that state. Imagine one of the Israelis was released being raped or bulldozed or blindfolded and handcuffed and executed. And why are they not telling us that these people who were killed in captivity were killed by the same country that was supposedly looking for them and waging a genocide supposedly to get them? All lies. As a matter of fact, what they're trying to do now is more dangerous than before. So there's this peace intoxication, which is nothing but a deal, really. There's a deal that's happening that Israel is still breaching. Today they killed 2 people in Gaza. They killed a 10-year-old boy in the West Bank for no reason. Their barbaric hordes and squatters in the West Bank are continuing to steal and attack Palestinians in the West Bank. That's the norm in the West Bank, by the way. Whether there was a genocide or no genocide, that's the day-to-day life. And many of them, by the way, came from America, some of these squatters. Let's not forget that. Mike Huckabee, the other day, he confirmed that 700,000 Americans live in Israel, in Israeli settlements. They bring them from the United States, and they let them go and steal. Criminals, pedophiles, people running away from justice. Where do they find refuge? They find refuge in Israel. Of course, with complete impunity, as in no one even says anything about them. Do you remember Netanyahu's advisor who was sent to Israel after facing pedophilia cases in the United States? Who sent him back to Israel? The United States authorities, the federal government. So what we have here, in essence, is what they call a conspiracy theory. They call the term Zionist occupied government a conspiracy theory. If you go and read up about that, of course, the first lines that you hear in the search engines will tell you, oh, this is a conspiracy theory that says that Israel has control over certain governments. Well, what do you think? I mean, they're controlling everything in and out. They can commit mass murder. They can have assassinations and cover it up and wrap it up as if nothing happened, like what they did with Charlie Kirk. Way too much evidence to support that, by the way. And then they can get away with murder as if nothing happened. As a matter of fact, one of the guys who was on the flotilla, he was a former Army Ranger in the United States. His name is Greg Stoker. Listen to what he had to say after he was taken, actually, as a hostage by Israel. Let's have a look to what he had to say.
Veteran kills himself every 15 minutes in the United States, holdover from a war that we didn't need, had no business being in. And one of the reasons I'm on this flotilla is because a lot of people see, Palestine or what happens in the Middle East, conflicts in the Middle East as just, that's what happens over there with those people. What can I do about it, right? Because of the 20 years of the global war on terror, people have been normalized. Having military engagements in West Asia is just kind of what happens. And how does it affect them? So I'm on this flotilla to use my status as a veteran to say, hey, whatever violence we do overseas, whatever forms of repression and colonialism, immediately get implemented back in the States. The same technology used to enforce occupation and apartheid through AI targeting programs, spyware, mass drone warfare is coming to is actually already at a local police department near you. So if we accept the premise that there's a fascist takeover happening in Washington, D.C. and extending out through the entire continental United States, it started over here. It started with, the expansion of the police state after 9/11 and the national security state after 9/11, and it's only getting worse. And people need to understand that whatever our government is willing to do to Palestinians, they're willing to do to you. They just can't do it yet. Veteran kills himself.
That's it, really. That's the actual case. If you are justifying a genocide anywhere across the world, you're justifying the act itself. And it's only a matter of time up until you do it wherever you want, really. Because, you see, the funny thing is they're pretending like, firstly, nothing is happening because it's not getting any coverage. Some of the atrocities that Israel has done, of course, not only throughout the genocide, but after the genocide too. And now they're trying to show as if that's it, we're entering a peace deal, and everything is fine and all good, no problem whatsoever. And not talk about how the Palestinian hostages were raped in Israeli prisons. As a matter of fact, this was a translation of one of the people who were released from Gaza. Let's have a listen.
أنا تم اغتصابي بطريقة وحشية داخل سجون الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. اقتادوني من داخل القسم اللي أنا كنت عايش فيه لمكان أنا ما كنت بعرف شو هو. جردوني من ملابسي وبدأوا بعملية اغتصاب بالعصي. وهذا جزء بسيط جدا 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 وأخجل أنا إني أتحدث فيه مقابل ما تعرض له أسرى قطاع غزة. كانوا يخلوا الأسير يسجد على ركبتيه مرغما ويخلوا الكلب البوليسي يغتصبه. أنا تم اغتصاب.
You won't hear that, of course, on mainstream media. They're not going to plaster the images and the scenes that are coming out, from their most beloved little chosen state in that area, in that part of the world. As a matter of fact, many are trying to still convince us and the population, well, mainly in America, that no, these people are really, they're really the chosen people. So we need to accept that fact. Until when are you gonna, hope that this Schofield Bible propaganda gonna work? and are there still more people falling for it? Now, the dangerous thing about all of this is also the fact that despite this peace deal that happened, which is nothing but moving the genocide from a full throttle genocide to, if it's manual transmission, you go on, first or second gears. The genocide is still moving and they still have the plans. And if we think for 1 second that Israel gave up its ambitions to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian population, especially in Gaza and the West Bank, we would be delusional. The Palestinian population between the Jordan River to the sea has been more than the Jewish population inside of Israel and in the West Bank squatting establishments since 2015. And to them, a country based on Jewish supremacy and having a Jewish majority on the land, that's a big problem for them. That's why they were hell-bent on continuing with the genocide and trying to apply so much pressure to ethnically cleanse the population. Now that it's enshrined in the agreement itself that passed, that the Palestinian people will remain in their land and those who will get out for treatment would be able to go back, things started to change slightly. However, again, without too much clarity about the future. And that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem, first and foremost, for the population in Gaza, and then for the rest of the world, really. Now, they supposedly had this ceasefire or deal in Gaza. In the meantime, Israel carried out the most intense attacks in Lebanon ever since this supposed ceasefire took place over a year ago. These were some of the bombings that Israel carried out inside of Lebanon. Let's have a look.
شو الله أكبر.
That was just one of the bombings that they carried out. There were like over 20 strikes in Lebanon. Unbelievable intensity of strikes. We haven't heard about the numbers of casualties yet, but the level of intensity in Lebanon is reaching new levels. Let's have a look at some of the other videos that came out from Lebanon.
الله اكبر. شوف اسمعوا بلاد الحرب عم يحامي الغارات. غارات هونيك بس صار من سيناء صار، وبعرف هون عم بيعملوا هون هلا حيطلع هون شيء هونيك.
That's just the past day. I mean, they've been breaching the ceasefire ever since day one because of supposedly this side agreement that they had with the United States. But now they're reaching new levels, proving that what? All of this talk about this, ceasefire and de-escalation, let alone peace, is nothing but empty talk. And the United States isn't able to do anything but support Israel and continue its support for Israel. The funny thing is that they're having conflicting statements, so they're contradicting themselves. So the envoy for the region in relation to Lebanon and Syria, Tom Barak, he made statements a couple of weeks ago saying that Israel doesn't help the case of, again, another delusion of disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon by attacking all of these countries, but that the United States was dedicated to disarming them because they're their biggest enemies and they want to get rid of them. So they're totally supporting the Israeli agenda over there. And the plans of Lebanon, again, are showing a lot of mixed signals, number one, from the Lebanese government. Secondly, lack of genuine information and assurances for the future. There's nothing to confirm that Israel is going to stop these attacks anytime soon. The United States even failed to broker an agreement between Israel and Syria. And the Lebanese side, they're only talking about disarming the Lebanese resistance. slight criticism here and there with the Lebanese president, but nothing apart from that whatsoever. And by the way, in Gaza, they reached the stage. Well, Donald Trump had this handed this rope. Well, even if he forced Israel to get into this agreement, but it was a rope really for Israel because they weren't able to do anything. We saw how the Palestinian resistance was putting the heads of the genocide soldiers in the sand of Gaza and how they were running away from them whenever there was a confrontation. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump said that just recently, that Israel, if it could eliminate Hamas in Gaza, it would have. But he knew very well, or they knew very well, that they weren't able to. And that's why they went into this deal. With, of course, a side agreement, because it's all shady. We don't know what the agreement entails, how much. We did hear the versions, of course, but this agreement itself, or the side agreements that they may have had with the United States administration, which is most likely similar to what they've done with Lebanon, by the way, a ceasefire agreement between the mediators in Lebanon and Israel having a separate understanding agreement with the United States. Donald Trump is worse than Israel, by the way, in many of these cases. The American administration, whether there's like a genuine move to try and reduce something and there's an inner battle, separate story. He handed everything that Israel needed on a silver plate. And although the side agreement that Israel had with Lebanon had or came into effect before Trump became president again, he is still allowing Israel to get away with that in Lebanon without any sort of projection to end anything anytime soon. So in essence, now we have a situation in Gaza where most likely it will be another situation of Lebanon, but potentially far worse, especially if Israel continues to prevent the entry of heavy machinery that is required to start the process of removing the large numbers of the rubble, because any heavy machinery that went into Gaza now is only removing like basic stuff, roads and basic things. Some of the people, of course, are doing whatever they can to live, but that's nowhere near what is required. And Netanyahu is threatening not to go into the second phase up until Hamas comes up with mission impossible, basically, and brings all of the bodies of Israel's prisoners of war. When the Palestinians don't know where 9,000 Palestinian bodies are in Gaza, because Israel was shooting at everyone and preventing anyone from going to rescue the bodies. And it doesn't look promising, to be fair, for the future. Whether Israel is hiding some of the information and not saying everything, their actions on the ground are still proving that they're making it more difficult. Because 5 hours before Israel published the report that they're preventing this Turkish force, 80 people, rescue forces, to go into Gaza, the Turks said that Israel authorized their entry. And they're supposed to go in from the Rafah crossing. But Israel now reports saying that they still haven't opened the Rafah crossing. They haven't allowed the Egyptian side to enter the Gaza Strip, although the agreement is in effect. Most of the aid that's going in is going from multiple other checkpoints, 500 to 600 now. The levels are going up in terms of aid in Gaza.